Welcome to the Points News interviews, and today our guest is Dimitri Lascaris. Hello.
Pleasure to talk to you, Daria. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Well, considering everything that's going on in the world, I can't complain. So I'm very happy to be here in the south of Greece, but obviously we're living in difficult times.
All right, let's dive in right away to the interview. In your opinion, how soon do you think peace could be achieved in Gaza and Ukraine?
Well, peace could come at any time. It really is going to depend on the course of, I think, primarily the military situation, both in Gaza and in Ukraine. I think that it's more likely to come to an end sooner in Ukraine because, as far as I can tell, the Ukrainian military is collapsing. And I've always believed that because of the West's unwillingness to make peace, that is how the Ukraine war would end. It would end with the collapse of the Ukrainian military and a change in government in Ukraine. And I think that's very likely going to happen this year. Gaza, it may take a little longer, but because although Israel is in a very difficult state and it is also experiencing its own kind of collapse, I think that is going to take longer to play out than the collapse of the Ukrainian regime.
And as we're informed, the United States has provided significant financial and military support for Ukraine. Has the prolonged conflict in Ukraine affected your personal life or your living standards in any way?
Well, it's definitely affected my personal life because very quickly after Russia intervened militarily in February 2022, I began to criticize this war as a proxy war. And I took the position which actually, it was a position that I was adopting back in 2014, that the West was provoking conflict in Ukraine. So I took that position as soon as the military intervention began. I reiterated my position, and I came under attack, quite vicious attack on the part of supporters of Ukraine and NATO. I went on a speaking tour. Numerous of my speaking events were canceled because supporters of Ukraine pressured the people who were hosting my speeches to cancel the events. I ran for politics in Canada. Many of the people who supported me when I ran for political office turned against me. I lost some friends. On a personal level, the Ukraine war has had a significant impact on me. It also caused me to go to Russia for the first time in 2023. And that was a very eye-opening experience for me, changed my views about the world significantly. I went to Moscow and to Crimea. The Gaza conflict has also had a personal impact, but this is an impact that went back. I've been coming under attack by supporters of Israel for many years, so this was not new to me. And if anything, what was the big surprise for me, Daria, was that I never expected that I would experience something worse than what I experienced when I defended Palestinians. I thought that was as bad as it was going to get, but actually, defending Russia and its position was much worse. I came under even more vehement attacks than I did when I was defending Palestinians. That was a big surprise for me. I didn't understand the degree to which in Canada there's just outright Russophobia, tremendous hostility amongst Canadians towards Russia. And I think that this is terrible. And, it's not just wrong from an ethical perspective, but it's not in the interests of Canada for us to be hostile to Russia. We should be friends with the Russian people, just like we should be friends with the people of China. But instead, we seem to want to make ourselves their enemies.
I think all human beings should be friends. Like, we're all human, and that's it.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and nothing belongs to us in this world, actually, if thinking this way.
Yes.
I'd also love to hear your thoughts on Europe. Things are, to put it mildly, a bit shaky right now.
Mhm.
Um, Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, strikes me as a very level-headed and reasonable leader.
Mm.
He's talking about how different countries can cooperate in a way that benefits everyone and wants to bring the conflict in Ukraine to an end as soon as possible. What you say is the opposite of Trudeau?
I have mixed feelings about Viktor Orban. I think that he has been uh, a voice of reason when it comes to the Ukraine war. Excuse me. I commend him for uh, urging that the Europeans bring that war to an end. But there are other aspects of his record to which I object strenuously. So, for example, Viktor Orban is very, very close to Israel, even though Israel is committing a genocide. After Benjamin Netanyahu was indicted by the International Criminal Court, he immediately offered an invitation to Netanyahu to come to Hungary, even though Hungary is a party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court and has an obligation to arrest anyone who's indicted. Um, Now, that doesn't mean that I agree with everything that the International Criminal Court does. But in the case of Israel, there is no question that Benjamin Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Also, I did an analysis about the voting patterns in the United Nations General Assembly in 2023. I actually gave a speech about this at Megimo in Moscow. I was invited to give a speech there. And what I found was Hungary consistently under Orban votes with the United States at the UN General Assembly. Uh, like the only two countries that vote more with the United States at the UN General Assembly are Israel and Canada. So he's very, very aligned with Washington on most issues. And he's also has sent, troops to Afghanistan, which was an unjust criminal war, Iraq. So Viktor Orban is not as independent as many people believe. When it comes to the Ukraine war, he did adopt a position that was quite independent of Europe. But he's just one, of many leaders, Daria. The bigger question, of course, by far, is what is happening to Europe today. And I used to be proud of being European citizen. I'm a citizen of Greece, and this was the place I always wanted to come and spend, the rest of my life. And I must say, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed at what's happening to Europe. Our leaders seem utterly hell-bent on provoking a nuclear war. They are increasing dramatically military spending when there's no need to do that. And even though we have tremendous amounts of debt in Europe, and they're talking about cutting back on the programs that protect vulnerable people and ordinary citizens and workers like healthcare and pensions and so forth, to do what? There's no threat from Russia doesn't want to attack Europe. This is insanity. I mean, it's obvious to anybody with an ounce of reason. And they're also engaging in extremely aggressive tactics to suppress free speech. We saw this with respect to criticism of the Ukraine war. We see this with respect to criticism of Israel. They're barring candidates from running for political office. I don't like Marine Le Pen. I never did, but I don't think she should be barred from running for political office, whatever my disagreements may be with her. But now they barred her, and this could actually provoke serious conflict in France. And then, of course, they barred Georgescu. I think Georgescu seems like a pretty good candidate based on what I know about him. And they barred him from running to be the president of Ukraine, even though he has more support than any other, not Ukraine, but Romania, even though he has more support than any other candidate. So Europe is becoming poorer, it's becoming militaristic, it's becoming hostile to free speech, and it's becoming anti-democratic. It's a sad time to be a European.
And speaking about Europe and Russia, the path toward peaceful coexistence and economic cooperation between these two countries, it seems like the only way forward, especially after the conflict in Ukraine comes to an end. I hope. What do you think about that?
Yes. I think that that is exactly what Europeans should be doing. We should be fostering mutually beneficial relations with Russia. Russia has resources, vast resources that Europe needs. We share a continent together. You know, we share borders. It makes no sense for us not to be involved in economic relations with Russia. But I see no indication that the major powers in Europe, I mean, Viktor Orban doesn't have a lot of power, obviously. You know, but when it comes to the German government, the French government, the British government, these people seem to have absolutely no interest at this stage in returning to healthy economic relations with Russia, and that is going to result in, you know, the deepening of the economic crisis in Europe. The only way we can fix this study is to change the governments of Europe. They have to be thrown out of office, and they have to be replaced by people who actually want to make life better for ordinary Europeans.
And do you think it's possible for the US and Russia to become allies again in the future as Trump is back in the office? What would
Uh,
that look like?
well, he talks a good game, Donald Trump, but when it comes to his actions, you know, as you probably know, on Sunday he told the press that he was pissed off, as he put it, with Vladimir Putin. And the reason that he gave was that Vladimir Putin had questioned the credibility of Volodymyr Zelensky. 3 weeks ago, Donald Trump was calling Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator, which he is, in my opinion. I believe he is essentially a dictator at this stage, and humiliated him in the White House. So no one has done more to destroy the credibility of Volodymyr Zelensky than Donald Trump. And yet here he is saying that he's angry with Russia and is thinking about putting more sanctions on Russia because Russia did exactly what he did, but not, but Russia did it more diplomatically. He questioned the credibility of Zelensky. So for that and a whole bunch of reasons, you know, the fact that he continues to give weapons to Ukraine, the fact that he continues to maintain these sanctions on Russia, the fact that he continues to give intelligence, military intelligence to Ukraine, which is being used to kill Russian soldiers. I just don't believe that Trump is serious about peace. I hope I'm wrong. Uh, Personally, I believe what he's doing is he's trying to gain some uh, cooperation from Russia because he wants to go after Iran and China. And Russia is very close to China and Iran. So he's trying to pry Russia away from China and Iran. But he's not particularly interested in peace, and I have serious doubts about whether he's going to be willing to do that. But again, if the American people can replace him with a sensible leader, there's absolutely no reason why the Russian Federation and the people of the United States can't have friendly political, cultural, economic relations that are mutually beneficial.
He's a confusing guy, I think, because the latest news are really confusing, and he's often changing his shoes. And even, for example, the ethnic cleansing that he was talking about in Gaza, right? So
Yes.
I hope that it's just words, just to confuse, maybe to scare people, something like that.
Yes. Well, we're about to find out the truth, I think, but I hope you're right.
Do you believe China is the USA's biggest competitor, and could it pose a real threat to the American economy?
Well, it's not a threat in the sense that the Chinese government wants to attack the United States. I think that's preposterous. I don't think it wants to go to the war to the United States. It's not a threat in the sense that it wants to destroy the American economy, but it's a threat in the sense that it can't be dominated. The Chinese economy on a purchasing power parity basis is now substantially larger than that in the United States. A recent survey showed that in the vast majority of categories of technological sophistication, China is well ahead of the United States, whereas the opposite was true 20 years ago. China's military is growing in size and sophistication, even though they don't spend nearly as much on their military as the United States does. So uh, the way things are going, Russia will, I'm sorry, China will never be, I think this is also true of Russia, they will never be dominated again by the United States in our lifetimes. That's not going to happen. The Americans, if they're hell bent on being the masters of the universe, then yes, China and Russia are threats. But if they are willing to coexist peacefully and treat, China and Russia as equals, then they're not threats. Again, there's absolutely no reason why they cannot have mutually beneficial relations. But this is not the way the Americans think. The entire political elite, right up until the current time, seems, and I think this is true of Donald Trump as well, that they seem committed to maintaining US global hegemony, even though that's no longer possible. And that's a very dangerous thing because all of these countries have nuclear weapons. So let us hope that the American political leadership comes to understand that they can coexist peacefully with the Chinese people and the Russian people.
Moving forward to another conflict, what's your perspective on the future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
I think that Israel is going to collapse. And regrettably, tragically, it's going to kill a lot of people before it does collapse. The country is deeply divided. They just did a poll which showed that 69% of Israelis want the release of the hostages and an end to the war. And yet the political elite is expanding war, potentially even to Iran. The economy has been battered in Israel. The military has taken a beating. The vulnerability of Israel to missile attacks from Iran and Hezbollah has been demonstrated. This has caused, I think, many Israelis to feel insecurity. And so a lot of Israelis have left the country. Fewer Israelis will emigrate. I'm not sorry, fewer Jewish people will emigrate to Israel, I think, in the years ahead because of what Israel has become. They don't want to go to Israel anymore, at least not as many of them. So Israel is, I think, hurtling towards self-destruction. But at this point, it still has the capacity to kill a lot of people. And it has no hesitation in doing that. Some of the reports that have been coming out of Gaza in the last week are absolutely monstrous. For example, the UN has documented that Israel killed 15 civil defense workers one by one and then buried their bodies. These are people who went out into the field at great risk to themselves to help injured Palestinians. They weren't militants. They were heroes, and Israel executed them. But this is just one of many atrocities. So Israel, and the biggest problem of all that Israel has is that its own behavior has isolated it and delegitimized the country. I don't think Israel can recover from this. What I think probably is going to happen in the long run is that the Palestine will reemerge. It might not have that name, but there's going to be one country between the river and the sea, and everybody living between the river and the sea will have the rights of a citizen. Does that mean there's going to be perfect equality? No. I mean, if you look at what happened in South Africa when they ended the apartheid regime there, in theory, Black people have political power in South Africa, but if you go to South Africa, and I have been to South Africa, there's tremendous inequality between the white population and the Black population. And that's a lesson that the Palestinians should take away from the experience of South Africa. Just because you have political equality, which I think they will have one day, it doesn't mean that you will have real equality. So this is a long-term project. But I just, Daria, I cannot see that Israel is going to survive after what it has done. I would be astonished if that happens.
And how do you see Iran's role in this conflict, especially with its opposition to Israel?
Well, Iran is a very important part of this equation. I think that unless the Americans and the Israelis are willing to nuke Iran, uh, which obviously would have terrible catastrophic consequences for the whole world, not just for the Iranians. I don't think they can defeat Iran militarily. They can cause a lot of suffering to the Iranian people, but Iran has, very, very powerful missile capabilities. I think it still has sophisticated air defenses. It's a country of 90 million people. It's a large country, a very mountainous country. They're not going to be able to invade this country. They're not going to be able to occupy this country. And it can inflict a lot of damage on U.S. military bases in the region and on Israel itself, as it has demonstrated in the last 18 months. So does that mean that Iran won't be attacked by the United States and Israel? No, it doesn't mean that. They're capable of doing it. Their leaders are these people are criminally insane. The Trump administration, the people around him like Hegseth and Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio, and then Israel's leadership has absolutely no regard for human life. It's possible they will attack Iran, but I think that's simply going to expedite Israel's destruction and also expedite the demise of the American empire. So let us hope that they are not so foolish as to think that they can destroy Iran. They can't. Absent, nuclear weapons. I think that that's unrealistic.
And what do you think about Biden's administration if it would be still, if he would still be in office? It's more worse than Trump?
That's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
It could be worse. It could be worse. I think it definitely would be worse in Ukraine. I think that Biden was capable of escalating to a point where the Russian Federation would have felt it necessary to attack a NATO country. He's perfectly capable of doing that. At least for now, it seems like Trump is not willing to go that far. But on the other hand, Biden didn't attack Iran, and Trump might do that. So it's hard to say. They're both very, very dangerous men. I personally, if I were an American, and I've said this before, I would not have voted for either of these men. I would have voted for Jill Stein. I was happy to see Biden defeated. I just wish that he had been defeated by Jill Stein and not by Donald Trump.
What do you think is the best way to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
Stop sending weapons to Israel. That's it. It's as simple as that. Israel is a pipsqueak. Israel does not have, if you look at every single metric of power, you look at the size of the country, the population of the country, the size of its economy, the resources at its disposal, oil and gas, water, fertile land. These are all very important things when it comes to one's ability to wage war and maintain a position of dominance in one's region. Israel is a pipsqueak. The only way that Israel can survive in its current form is with massive military support from the West. So if the West wanted to pull the plug on Israel's military, Israel would be forced immediately to provide a humanitarian solution for the crisis in Gaza. So that's as simple as that. And if they're not going to do that, then ultimately I think Israel will be destroyed, and it will kill a lot of people along the way. So the choice lies with the governments of the West. They are ultimately responsible for this genocide, and they have the ability to stop it like that with a snap of the finger, but they will not do it.
As a journalist, have you been in countries where conflicts are ongoing?
Yes, I was in Palestine last year. I was to the West Bank, and I was in the refugee camps of Jenin and Tulkarm, amongst others, which had suffered enormous damage. I went 5 times to the south of Lebanon in the last year and a half, to the border with Israel, and we managed to gain access to villages that had been destroyed, where other Western journalists hadn't been. I've been to Venezuela and Cuba, which have been destroyed by the sanctions imposed by the United States, and also been subjected to, various forms of military aggression. I was in Iraq last year, I went to Baghdad and I saw the devastation that that country has suffered as a result of Western imperialism. And, you know, there's really no substitute, Daria, for going to these places and seeing for yourself with your own eyes what the impacts of Western policies are. It's heartbreaking, and it has you can't believe the propaganda anymore that I grew up with. I grew up in Canada, and I had a certain vision about my country and about the West, very favorable, positive vision, until I actually started going to the places that they have destroyed. And I realized that I had been fed a pack of lies my whole life. Had a profound impact on me, and I'm glad that I went there. Yeah, as difficult as it was to see these places.
Well, right now, actually, there's a lot of changes, I think, in social media because people are opening their eyes. Um, they see the truth and they don't actually want to listen anymore to BBC or New York Times. I mean, those social media that aren't actually that truthful.
Mhm.
And how can the international community better support Palestinian refugees?
Well, again, the solution to all of these problems for the Palestinian people is complete termination of military support to Israel. But uh, failing that, what we uh, as citizens around the world can do is BDS. We have to, you know, we can have a profound impact on the corporations that are complicit in the suffering of the Palestinian people by just refusing to buy their goods and services. So I can't stress this enough. Go to the website of the BDS movement. They have all the information you need about what companies to boycott. And if you're willing to actually risk arrest, then you go to the offices of these corporations and you know, attach yourself to a fence, lie down in the street, don't allow anybody in or out of the office premises, do what you can to disrupt non-violently, of course, but do what you can to disrupt the business operations of these corporations. If enough people do this, we could bring the Israeli economy to its knees and force Israel to respect the human rights of the Palestinian people.
Yeah, I think, yeah, because when there's a lot of people are standing together, it's actually a real strength. We can
Yes,
do a lot together. Together we can do like a lot of stuff.
we can
Uh,
do everything. We can
yeah.
accomplish anything if we're sufficiently united.
And my final question for today's interview is, do you think it's possible for the world to achieve lasting peace without military conflicts in the future?
Um, well, is it possible? Absolutely. Is it likely? I regret to say I can't say that it's likely in good conscience, not at this stage. Um, but uh, you know, so much matters about the quality of our leadership because ultimately these are the people who determine military budgets, who begin wars, end wars. We have to stop voting for the same parties that have betrayed us over and over again. You know, in Canada, just to give you an example, this is also true of the United States. In the entire post-World War II period, the same two political parties have controlled the government. And and their policies are almost indistinguishable. You know, they make a lot of noises about their disagreements, but really they agree on the vast majority of issues that matter to people. And yet, you know, despite their constant betrayal of the public interest, people keep voting for them. If we keep doing that, we aren't going to achieve peace in this world. But there are people out there who are capable of bringing wars to an end and creating peace on a global scale. We have to support those people. We have to empower those people, and we have to stop giving political power to bloodthirsty psychopaths, which is exactly what we've been doing for the last, you know, 80 years in the West, I'm sad to say. So again, this comes back to the point you just made. If people are sufficiently united and they are acting in a manner that is rational in their own interest, we can do anything, including achieve global peace.
Thank you for this interview. I think it was really insightful.
My pleasure.
I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you, Daria. Good to
Thank
talk to
you.
you.